What does fear feel like at 17 in front of 80,000 people? Ask most players. They will tell you about the stomach, the tight chest, the legs that forget how to run. They will tell you pressure sits on the sternum like a hand pressing down. Ask this one, and he will look at you like the question makes no sense, like you have asked him to describe the taste of a color. Pressure, it turns out, is not a law of physics. It is a story adults tell themselves, passed down like a family recipe until everyone assumes it is simply how the body works under scrutiny. Someone forgot to tell the boy. He was handed a shirt too big for him, a number that means something only to the people who raised him, and a stage built to swallow men twice his age. He did not shrink under the lights. He smiled at them, the way you smile at a familiar street corner. This is not a story about talent. Talent, on its own, is common. Academies are full of gifted feet. This is a story about the space between fear and a boy who was never properly introduced to it, and about everyone, unglamorous and unfilmed, who built that space for him before he ever needed it. He is born on a Friday, in the heat of a Catalan July, to two people who are, in most ways that matter, still children themselves. His mother, Sheila, was carried to Spain from Equatorial Guinea as a girl, not by her own decision, but by a grandmother who made the crossing first, alone, and then sent for the rest of the family once there was somewhere to land. His father, Mounir, made a version of the same journey from Larache on Morocco's Atlantic coast when he was barely older than 9. 2 countries, 2 crossings years apart that happened to end up on the same street in the same corner of Catalonia. One rented apartment, a kitchen and a bedroom that share the same 4 walls, a detail he will mention himself years later, not as complaint but as measurement, a way of marking how far the distance has become. Before the boy is born, there is no spare money. Rent is a threat, not a routine. This is not a detail sharpened for effect. It is simply the ordinary math of what happens to 2 people who cross oceans with almost nothing and have not yet been given a reason to believe it will work out. 2 men help the young couple, not with headlines, not with cameras. Quietly, the way people help each other when nobody is going to write it down. Their names are Lamine and Yamal. No campaign, no ceremony. Just 2 men who saw a scared young couple about to become parents with empty pockets and did the plain, unfilmed thing that people sometimes still do for each other. They helped, and then they went home. The parents do not forget. They cannot repay a debt like that in money, so they repay it the only way that outlasts money. They give their son both names stitched together into one. Lamine Yamal Nasraoui Abana. A father's country folded into a mother's country, wrapped around a debt of kindness that could very easily have been forgotten and wasn't. When he is still small, his parents separate. He moves with his mother to Rocafonda, a neighborhood that does not appear in tourist guides, that postcards skip, that outsiders drive past without slowing down. Working class, overlooked, the kind of place a city forgets to photograph until one of its children forces the city to look. His mother works in a fast food restaurant while raising him. She does this without any promise attached to it. No scout waiting in the wings yet, no certainty that any of it leads anywhere. She simply works and raises her son, and somewhere in the space between those 2 obligations, the boy begins, without anyone officially deciding it yet, to become the best young footballer his country will produce in a generation. There is no dramatic discovery in this part of the story. There is a woman clocking in for a shift and a boy already deciding, quietly and without an audience, what he is going to be. Years later, When journalists ask him about all of this, he does not reach for grand language. He describes his mother simply as the person he loves most. He describes a home where the kitchen and the bedroom used to share the same space. And he describes, without embellishment, how different the view from the window is now. He talks about a younger half-brother with open affection, a small boy who has become, almost by accident, a minor celebrity of his own in the stands, cheering from a seat his own father never had. He talks about a younger half-sister too, and about a family that reassembled itself imperfectly and honestly around him. None of this is staged for a lens. It happens whether or not a camera is present. That, more than any statistic, is the origin worth remembering. A family stitched together across 2 continents, held steady by people who worked long hours and asked for very little in return. There is a photograph. In it, a 20-year-old Argentine, already, by then, the best player most people alive have ever watched, leans over a bathtub during a charity photo shoot arranged by the club he plays for. In his arms is a baby, only a few months old, from a neighborhood he has never heard of and never will need to. The man is Lionel Messi. The baby is Lamine Yamal. Nobody in that room, in the summer of 2007, believes this photograph will matter beyond that afternoon. It is one frame among hundreds taken that day, filed away, forgotten by nearly everyone except the family who kept a copy tucked somewhere safe. 17 years pass. Then the boy in that photograph grows into a man who stands across a pitch from Messi, not as an admirer in the stands, but as an opponent the world builds a World Cup final around. This is not superstition, and it is not quite fate either. It is something plainer and stranger than both. Sometimes the person who holds you as a stranger, for no reason beyond a charity request and an afternoon's work, becomes, decades later, the figure your whole career gets measured against. Sometimes a single bath on an ordinary day nobody thought to remember carefully becomes the first frame of a story no writer would have dared invent on purpose. The photograph does not prove destiny. Photographs never do. It proves only this: greatness sometimes brushes against greatness before either one has a name yet worth remembering. And the world, for once, happens to keep the receipt. Rocafonda does not have manicured grass. It has cracked pavement, low concrete walls, and a ball that never behaves the way a coaching manual says it should. This, it turns out, matters enormously. A ball on broken concrete does not roll politely. It skids. It stops short without warning. It jumps at angles no textbook predicts. A child who learns to control it here learns something a smooth, generous, forgiving academy pitch simply cannot teach: how to trust your feet when the ground itself is unreliable. He plays first for a local club, then Granolers, then earns a trial at La Torreta, a modest academy where money is never supposed to be the deciding factor, though for many families, quietly, it always is. The academy's coordinator makes a quiet decision that never becomes a headline. Whatever this boy needs to keep playing, he will have. Money will not be the reason he stops. Nobody frames this as heroism. It is simply a man doing his job with unusual care for a child who happens to deserve it. At 6 years old, FC Barcelona notices him. He signs. He moves into La Masia, the same academy that, years earlier, shaped the man from the bathtub photograph into what he became. He does not carry himself like a boy afraid of failing in front of better players. Coaches who work with him during these years reach for one word more often than any other: fearless, not reckless. Fearless. There is a difference, and the people who watch him closely insist on it. He smiles during matches. Not for the cameras, This habit exists long before there are cameras worth smiling for. He smiles when the ball is at his feet and three defenders are closing in from every side, because to him, in that instant, this is still the same game he played on cracked concrete back home, where the only thing that ever mattered was whether he could make the ball do what he wanted, regardless of how the ground beneath it behaved. Pressure had not been invented for him yet. Not really. He built his skills somewhere with no pressure in it at all. Just a wall, a ball, uneven ground, and enough hours in the evening for failure to happen quietly, without an audience keeping score. By the time an audience arrives, the habits are already finished. Fear did not get an early enough start to move in and settle. There is another discipline running underneath all of this, less visible than footwork, but no less demanding. He is a practicing Muslim, and during Ramadan, he continues to fast even as the training schedule and match calendar refuse to slow down for him. His clubs adjust nutrition plans and recovery windows around him rather than the other way around. A quiet negotiation between an ancient practice and a thoroughly modern sport. It would be easy to treat this as a side note. It is not one. A body that can hold discipline in one part of its life tends to carry that discipline everywhere else. The same patience that gets him through a fasting day gets him through a match where the ball will not arrive for 90 minutes at a time. The same quiet that steadies him at dawn steadies him again under floodlights. He does not perform this part of himself for effect either. He performs it, if that is even the right word, because it is simply who he is. On cracked concrete, in a locker room, or in a stadium built to hold 100,000 strangers. April 29th, 2023. He is 15 years old, 9 months and 16 days. He walks onto the pitch for FC Barcelona's first team in a match against Real Betis. He becomes the youngest player to wear that shirt in more than a century of the club's history. August 20th, 2023. His first start. Cádiz visit Barcelona. The home side win 2-0. When he is substituted late in the match, the crowd rises to its feet for him. He is 16 years old and already the youngest player to start a league match in that stadium in the modern era. September 8th, 2023. Tbilisi. He comes off the bench for Spain's senior side. 16 years and 57 days old. The youngest player ever to wear that shirt for his country. Before the night is finished, he scores. Youngest goal scorer too. Spain wins 7-1. October 8th, 2023. A league match against Granada. He scores again. He is now the youngest player ever to find the net in the history of La Liga, a competition that has existed since 1929, nearly a century of players before him. January 2024. The Copa del Rey, the Supercopa de España. Records fall in front of him like dominoes he did not set out to knock over, one after another, almost apologetically. Youngest scorer in the Supercopa's history. Youngest scorer in the modern era of the Copa del Rey. February 12th, 2024. 2 goals in a single league match against Granada. 16 years and 213 days old. The youngest player to ever score twice in one La Liga game. June 15th, 2024. Berlin. Spain against Croatia. He starts the match. 16 years and 338 days old. The youngest player to ever appear at a European Championship. June 30th, 2024. The knockout rounds begin. He features again, still 16, and becomes the youngest player to ever appear in a European Championship knockout match. July 9th, 2024. The semi-final against France. He receives the ball on the edge of the box, cuts inside onto his stronger foot, and bends it beyond a goalkeeper with no answer for the angle. 16 years and 362 days old, the youngest goal scorer in the tournament's history. Spain win the tournament. He is named its young player. October 28th, 2024. Paris. The Ballon d'Or ceremony under chandeliers built for a different era of the sport entirely. He receives the Copa Trophy, awarded each year to the best player in the world under 21. By the close of the 2024-25 season, he has played 55 matches for his club, scored 18 goals, and provided 25 assists, a return that would be considered remarkable for a player finishing his career, let alone one who has barely started it. A World Cup arrives, hosted across a continent. He is called up. Spain's opening match ends in a goalless draw against tournament debutants, a reminder that nothing in this sport is guaranteed, however many records precede you. Then, against Saudi Arabia, he scores his first World Cup goal and drops to his knees in prostration, a quiet act of gratitude that says more about him than any statistic could. The tournament carries Spain toward a final. Waiting across the pitch, in an Argentine shirt, is the same man who once held him, unremarkably, in a bathtub. Commentators reach for the comparison instantly. The student and the teacher, the past and the future, occupying the same 90 minutes. He does not seem to need the narrative. He has spent his whole career treating comparisons like weather, present, sometimes loud, ultimately irrelevant to whether the ball goes in. What the cameras rarely catch in moments like this is the ordinary preparation underneath the occasion. Shin pads taped the same way they were taped in Rocafonda, boots laced in the same order, a breath held, then released, the same as it was on a cracked pitch with no crowd at all. The dates keep arriving, the records keep falling. None of it, watched closely, looks like strain. It looks like a boy doing, on the largest stages the sport has to offer, exactly what he did on a cracked pitch in Rocafonda years earlier. Simply playing. Watch him celebrate a goal and you will see it. 3 fingers, then a 0, then 4. A small gesture, over almost as soon as it begins, easy to miss if you do not already know what it means. It is not a brand. Nobody was paid to design it. No marketing meeting produced it. It is a postal code. The postal code of Rocafonda, the neighborhood where he grew up, where his mother clocked in for long shifts, where the pavement cracked underfoot, and the ball never rolled quite straight. Every time he makes that gesture, in front of 100,000 people, in front of broadcasts reaching countries that could not locate Rocafonda on a map if their lives depended on it, he is doing one small deliberate thing, refusing to let the place forget him and refusing to let himself forget the place. He does not point to a crest. He does not point to a trophy. He points to a number that simply means home. It becomes something else too, without him necessarily intending it. A signal to every child on a similar street, in a similar postal code, somewhere else entirely, that where you start is not a ceiling. It might one day simply be the number you hold up to the light. It is a quiet kind of signature. No slogan attached to it. No performance built around it. Just an address, offered up again and again, so that wherever the boy goes, Rocafonda goes with him. So return to the question. What does fear feel like at 17 in front of 80,000 people? Maybe the honest answer is that fear is not a fixed thing, handed to every person in equal measure. Maybe it is built, slowly, out of the stories we are told about what we are allowed to attempt, and what we are quietly warned against attempting. Nobody told this boy those stories, or, if they did, he was too busy on a cracked pitch to hear them properly. He grew up on a street with no pressure built into it, just a ball, a wall, and enough unwatched hours in the evening to fail freely without anyone keeping a record of it. By the time the world finally was watching, the fear had never found the opening to move in. His parents crossed borders with almost nothing between them. 2 strangers helped when help was not owed to anyone. A photograph, taken for no reason worth remembering at the time, tied a beginning to an ending nobody could have plotted in advance. A cracked pitch, of all things, taught a child's feet what a flawless one never could have. None of it, on its own, was inevitable. All of it, taken together, quietly built a boy who does not flinch. The lesson here is not simply, be fearless. Fearlessness is not a decision made on the day it happens to matter most. It is built years earlier, in places nobody bothers to film, by people who show up for you when they are under no obligation to. Whatever stage belongs to you, however small it looks from the outside, however unremarkable the street, however far from any camera, build there. Quietly. Without waiting for someone else's permission to begin. It was never just a number. Because somewhere, on a piece of cracked ground nobody was watching, that is exactly how this one did.